The dust storm came out of nowhere that August afternoon in 1882, sweeping across the Kansas plains like the wrath of God himself. And when it cleared, Vincent Samuels found a woman collapsed against the side of his barn, her dress torn and her face streaked with tears and dirt. He had been checking on his horses when he heard the faint sound of crying, almost lost in the wind. Vincent was not a man accustomed to visitors. His ranch sat 5 miles outside of a small trading post, and the nearest proper town, Dodge City, was a full day's ride east. He lived alone, had done so for the past 3 years since his father died and left him this patch of land, and a herd of cattle that barely kept him fed. At 26 years old, Vincent had resigned himself to a solitary life, finding companionship in his animals and the occasional trip to town for supplies. The woman looked up at him with eyes so filled with desperation that Vincent felt something crack open in his chest. She could not have been more than 22 or 23, with dark auburn hair that had come loose from its pins and skin burned raw from the sun. Her dress, though dirty and damaged, had once been fine, the kind a respectable woman from back east might wear. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse, "please do not send me away." Vincent crouched down beside her, keeping his movements slow and careful as if approaching a wounded animal. "I would not dream of it, miss. Can you stand? Let me help you inside." She tried to rise but swayed dangerously. Vincent caught her elbow and then, when that proved insufficient, carefully lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, and he wondered how long she had been out in this heat without water. As he carried her toward the house, she turned her face against his shoulder, and he felt her body shake with silent sobs. Inside the small ranch house, Vincent set her down gently on the worn settee his mother had brought from Pennsylvania years ago. He fetched water from the pump and brought it to her in a tin cup. She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. "Slowly," he said softly. "You will make yourself sick." She nodded and forced herself to drink more carefully. When she finally lowered the cup, she looked at him with those haunted eyes again. "My name is Amanda Ellis. I was traveling with a wagon train heading to California. We were supposed to stop for supplies, but—" her voice broke. "But the wagon master found out about my condition. He said I was a burden and a moral stain on the company. He left me behind this morning with nothing but the clothes on my back." Vincent felt anger surge through him. He had heard of such things happening, knew the cruelty people could inflict on those they deemed unworthy, but to actually witness the results of such heartlessness made his blood boil. "That is barbaric," he said, his voice tight. "I am with child," Amanda said, and there was both defiance and shame in her voice. "The father was a man I thought would marry me. He promised he would, but when I told him about the baby, he disappeared in the night. I had already sold everything I owned to go west with him, so I used what little money I had left to join the wagon train. I thought I could start over in California, find work, raise my child alone if I had to, but now—" She looked down at her hands. "Now I have nothing. No money, no family, nowhere to go. I have been walking since dawn, and I thought I would die out there." Vincent pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. His mind was racing, trying to sort through the practical considerations and the deeper moral question of what he should do. "You are safe here," he said finally. "Rest tonight, eat. We can figure out what comes next after you have recovered." "I cannot pay you," Amanda said quietly. "I have nothing to offer." "I did not ask for payment," Vincent replied. "Now you look like you have not eaten in days. Let me fix you something." He stood and moved to the small kitchen area, pulling out bread and cold beef from the previous night's dinner. As he prepared the simple meal, he could feel Amanda's eyes on him, studying him as if trying to determine whether she could trust him. Vincent understood. She had been betrayed by those she should have been able to rely on. Trust would not come easily to her now. When he brought her the plate, she ate with the same desperate hunger with which she had drunk the water. Vincent busied himself with small tasks around the house, giving her space and time to collect herself. The sun was beginning to set, painting the walls with orange light. "When are you due?" he asked after a while, trying to keep his voice neutral and kind. Amanda swallowed her last bite of bread. "January, I think. Maybe early February. It is hard to be certain." 5 months away, Vincent calculated. 5 months to figure out what to do, how to help this woman who had been thrown away like refuse. He thought about taking her to Dodge City, helping her find respectable work there, but he knew the reality of such situations. A pregnant, unmarried woman would find few doors open to her, and those that did open would likely lead to circumstances as bad as or worse than being abandoned on the prairie. "You can stay here," Vincent said suddenly, the words coming out before he had fully thought them through. "At least until the baby comes. Longer if you need to. I have room and I could use help around the ranch anyway. It is not much, but you would be safe." Amanda's eyes filled with tears again. "Why would you do that for me? You do not even know me." Vincent thought about that for a moment. "My mother always said that we are judged by how we treat those who can do nothing for us in return. You need help, and I can provide it. It is as simple as that." "Nothing is ever that simple," Amanda said, but there was a hint of hope in her voice beneath the wariness. "Maybe not," Vincent admitted, "but we can try to make it that way." That night, Vincent gave Amanda his bedroom, insisting despite her protests. He made himself a bedroll on the floor near the fireplace and lay awake for a long time, listening to the sounds of the prairie at night and wondering what he had just committed himself to. He was not a religious man, but he found himself offering up a silent prayer that he had made the right choice, that he would be able to help this woman and her unborn child without making things worse. In the bedroom, Amanda lay in the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. The sheets smelled clean, like soap and sun, and the mattress, though simple, was more comfortable than anything she had slept on in weeks. She thought about Vincent Samuels, this strange, quiet cowboy who had taken her in without question. He was tall and lean, with sun-darkened skin and hands that looked capable and strong. His eyes were a deep brown, and when he looked at her, she saw none of the judgment or disgust she had become so accustomed to seeing in other people's faces. She wanted to trust him, but trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. Still, exhaustion eventually overtook her caution, and she fell into the deepest sleep she had experienced in months. The next morning, Vincent woke before dawn, as was his habit. He made coffee and started preparing breakfast, trying to move quietly so as not to wake Amanda. But when he turned from the stove, he found her standing in the doorway, her hair braided over one shoulder and her dress as neat as she could make it given its condition. "I can do that," she said. "Please let me help. I cannot just sit idle while you do everything." Vincent hesitated, then nodded. "All right. Do you know how to make biscuits? I am terrible at it, always have been." A small smile crossed Amanda's face, the first he had seen from her. "I can make biscuits. My mother taught me when I was a girl." They worked together in the small kitchen, and Vincent was struck by how natural it felt, how easily they moved around each other despite being strangers. Amanda's biscuits were indeed far better than anything he had ever managed, light and flaky and perfect with butter. After breakfast, Vincent showed Amanda around the ranch. It was not an impressive spread by any means. He had about 40 head of cattle, a small herd of horses, chickens, and a vegetable garden that was struggling in the late summer heat. The house itself was just 4 rooms, solidly built but spare. Still, it was his, and he felt a strange pride in showing it to her. "It is not much," he said, echoing his words from the night before. "It is more than I had yesterday," Amanda replied. "It is honest work and honest land. That counts for something." Over the following days, they settled into a routine. Vincent rose early to tend to the animals and work on the endless repairs that a ranch demanded. Amanda took over the cooking and the household tasks, and despite her condition, she proved herself capable and hardworking. She tended the garden, coaxed the struggling plants back to life with careful watering and weeding. She mended Vincent's clothes, which had been in a sorry state of disrepair. She made the small house feel lived in rather than merely occupied. Vincent found himself looking forward to returning to the house each day, to the smell of cooking food and the sound of another human voice. He had not realized how lonely he had been until the loneliness was gone. They talked in the evenings, sitting on the porch as the sun went down and the heat of the day finally broke. Amanda told him about her childhood in Ohio, the daughter of a shopkeeper and a seamstress. She had been happy once, she said, before her parents died of fever when she was 19. She had gone to live with an aunt who made it clear she was an unwelcome burden. That was when she met Thomas, the man who had promised her everything and left her with nothing but the child growing inside her. "I was so foolish," Amanda said one evening, her hand resting on her belly, which was just beginning to show. "I believed every word he said. I thought he loved me." "You were not foolish," Vincent said firmly. "He was a liar and a coward. That is not your fault." "People do not see it that way," Amanda replied. "They see a woman with no husband and a child on the way, and they make their judgments." "Then those people are fools too," Vincent said. "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, Amanda. What you have survived, what you are still surviving, takes more courage than most people will ever need in their whole lives." Amanda looked at him in the fading light, and something shifted between them. It was subtle, a change in the air like the first hint of autumn after a long summer. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for seeing me as more than my mistakes." Vincent wanted to say that he did not see her mistakes at all, only her strength and her kindness, and the way she made his house feel like a home. But he kept those thoughts to himself. It was too soon, and she had been through too much. Whatever he was beginning to feel, he had no right to burden her with it. September came, and with it cooler weather. Vincent rode into the trading post for supplies, and when he returned, he brought fabric, needles, and thread. Amanda looked at the bundle in confusion. "You need clothes that fit properly," Vincent explained, feeling suddenly awkward. "I noticed you have been letting out the seams on your dress. This way you can make something more comfortable, and the baby will need things too." Amanda's eyes shone with tears, but she smiled through them. "You are too kind, Vincent. I do not know how I will ever repay you." "There is nothing to repay," he said. "Just maybe if the biscuits could keep coming, I would count myself well compensated." She laughed at that, a real genuine laugh, and Vincent felt absurdly pleased with himself for coaxing it out of her. As the weeks passed, Amanda sewed clothes for herself and tiny garments for the baby. She made curtains for the windows and a quilt for the bed. The house transformed under her care, becoming warmer and more welcoming. Vincent found himself spending less time working and more time simply being present, drawn to her company in a way that both thrilled and terrified him. He was falling in love with her. He knew it, though he tried to deny it to himself. He loved the way she hummed while she worked, the way she talked to the chickens as if they were her confidants, the way her face softened when she felt the baby move. He loved her strength and her vulnerability, her determination and her gentleness. But he kept his feelings locked away, afraid of taking advantage of her situation. She was dependent on him for everything. To speak of love now would be to put pressure on her that she did not need or deserve. So he remained silent and tried to be content with her presence. Amanda, for her part, found herself watching Vincent when he did not know she was looking. She watched the careful way he handled the animals, the patience he showed with everything he did. She noticed how he never raised his voice in anger, how he treated her with a respect that she had rarely experienced even before her fall from grace. She found herself thinking about the future differently than she had before, imagining not just survival, but perhaps something more. She told herself she was being foolish again, that she was mistaking gratitude for deeper feelings. But in the quiet moments, when Vincent smiled at something she said, or when their hands accidentally brushed while working together in the kitchen, she felt her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with gratitude. October brought the first frost, and with it, Vincent became more protective. He insisted Amanda not overwork herself, worried constantly about her health and the babies. Amanda found it both endearing and occasionally frustrating. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she told him one afternoon when he tried to take a basket of laundry from her hands. "I know that," Vincent said, "but humor me, I worry." "Why do you worry so much?" Amanda asked, setting down the basket and looking at him directly. "You have done more than anyone could expect. You have given me shelter and safety. You do not owe me your constant concern." Vincent was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I worry because I care about what happens to you, to both of you. Is that so hard to understand?" "No," Amanda said softly, "but I do not want to be just a burden you feel responsible for." "You have never been a burden," Vincent said with such conviction that Amanda felt her breath catch. "Not for a single day. Having you here, it has made everything better. You have to know that." They stood there in the yard, the October wind blowing around them, and Amanda felt the walls she had built around her heart begin to crack. "I do not want to be another person who takes advantage of your kindness," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You could not if you tried," Vincent replied. He reached out hesitantly and took her hand. "Amanda, I want you to know that you have a place here for as long as you want it. Not because I feel obligated, but because I want you here. I have come to care for you very deeply." "Vincent," Amanda said, and her voice trembled. "I have feelings for you too, but I am so afraid. I trusted someone before and it destroyed my life. How can I trust my own judgment again?" Vincent squeezed her hand gently. "I cannot make that decision for you. All I can do is promise that I will never deliberately hurt you, and that whatever you decide, you will always have a home here. If you only ever see me as a friend, I can live with that. Your happiness matters more to me than my own desires." Amanda felt tears running down her face. She had not expected this, had not allowed herself to hope for it. "I think I am falling in love with you," she admitted, "but I am terrified of what that means." "Then we will take it slowly," Vincent said. "There is no rush, we have time." Winter came to Kansas with a vengeance. Snow piled up around the ranch house, and Vincent spent long hours making sure the animals were fed and sheltered. Amanda made the house cozy, keeping the fire going and cooking hearty stews that warmed them from the inside out. They spent the long evenings talking or reading aloud to each other from the few books Vincent owned. Sometimes they simply sat in comfortable silence, Amanda sewing baby clothes while Vincent worked on repairing tack or carving small wooden toys for the coming child. One evening in late November, as they sat by the fire, Amanda suddenly gasped and grabbed Vincent's hand, placing it on her swollen belly. "Feel that?" she asked, her eyes bright with wonder. Vincent felt the baby kick against his palm, strong and insistent, and he was overwhelmed with emotion. "That is amazing," he said, his voice rough. He or she is strong. Like their mother, Vincent said, and Amanda smiled. And hopefully like their father, Amanda replied without thinking. Then she froze, realizing what she had said. I did not mean. I know what you meant, Vincent said quietly. And I hope, more than anything, that I can be that for this child, if you will let me. Amanda looked at him, this good man who had saved her life in every way that mattered. I would like that very much, she said. But Vincent, there is something you need to understand. I need to know that you want us, not just because you feel it is the right thing to do. I need to know that your feelings are real. Vincent set aside the leather he had been working on and turned to face her fully. Amanda, I have been in love with you since the end of September. I know the exact day I realized it. You were in the garden and you were singing something your mother used to sing to you. The sun was setting behind you, and you looked so beautiful and so happy, and I thought that I would do anything to keep that happiness on your face. But I did not say anything because I did not want you to feel pressured or obligated to return those feelings. Oh, Vincent, Amanda said, reaching for his other hand. I have been in love with you too, but I was so afraid to admit it, even to myself. After what happened with Thomas, I thought I would never be able to trust anyone again. But you have shown me every single day what real love looks like. Not just words and promises, but actions. You have been patient and kind and strong when I needed strength. Vincent pulled her gently into his arms, mindful of her belly between them. I love you, Amanda Ellis. I love you, and I already love this baby as if they were my own blood. I want to build a life with you, a real life, if that is what you want too. It is what I want, Amanda said, tears streaming down her face. More than anything. They sat there for a long time, holding each other while the fire crackled and the wind howled outside. Finally, Vincent pulled back slightly and looked at her seriously. Will you marry me, Amanda? I know the circumstances are not traditional, and I do not have much to offer you in terms of wealth or status, but I can promise you my whole heart and my complete devotion. I will be a father to your child and a husband to you if you will have me. Yes, Amanda said without hesitation. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Vincent kissed her then, soft and tender, and Amanda felt as if all the broken pieces of her life were finally coming back together in a new configuration, one that was perhaps even better than what she had lost. The next day, despite the cold, they rode together to the trading post. The man who ran it, a grizzled former trapper named George, looked surprised to see Vincent with a woman, and even more surprised when Vincent announced they needed to be married as soon as possible. Going to have to go into Dodge City for that, George said, studying Amanda's obvious condition with shrewd eyes. No preacher out here, but I can send word ahead if you want. Let them know you are coming. We would appreciate that, Vincent said, his arm protectively around Amanda's shoulders. They rode to Dodge City 2 days later, bundled against the cold in every piece of warm clothing they owned. The town was busy even in winter, full of cowboys and gamblers and businessmen. They found the church, a small whitewashed building on the edge of town, and spoke with the minister there, a kind-faced man named Reverend Thompson. He asked them a few questions, and Vincent explained their situation honestly, leaving nothing out. The Reverend listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When Vincent finished, there was a long pause. And you are certain you want to take responsibility for another man's child? Reverend Thompson asked Vincent. That child will be mine in every way that matters, Vincent said firmly. I will love and raise them as my own, and I will spend every day being grateful that I have the opportunity to do so. The Reverend looked at Amanda. And you, Miss Ellis, are you entering this marriage of your own free will? I am, Amanda said clearly. Vincent has shown me more true love and respect than anyone else in my life. I am marrying him because I love him, not because I have no other choice." The Reverend nodded, apparently satisfied. "Very well. I can perform the ceremony this afternoon if you are ready." They were married in that small church with only the Reverend and his wife as witnesses. Amanda wore the best dress she had made for herself from the fabric Vincent had bought, and Vincent had cleaned up and put on his only good shirt. They spoke their vows with voices that shook with emotion, promising to love and honor each other for the rest of their lives. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent kissed Amanda with such tenderness that the Reverend's wife openly wept with happiness. They signed the marriage certificate, making everything legal and official, and then rode back toward the ranch as the sun set behind them, husband and wife. That night, in the bedroom that was now officially theirs to share, Vincent held Amanda carefully, terrified of hurting her or the baby. She laughed at his excessive caution and guided his hands to where she wanted them, showing him that she was not as fragile as he feared. Their first night as husband and wife was gentle and sweet, filled with whispered words of love and careful explorations. Afterward, Amanda lay with her head on Vincent's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and felt truly safe for the first time in over a year. "I never thought I would be this happy again," she whispered into the darkness. Vincent kissed the top of her head. "I never thought I would be this happy ever. You have given me everything I did not even know I wanted." December passed in a blur of contentment. Vincent and Amanda settled into married life with surprising ease. They learned each other's habits and preferences, had small disagreements about unimportant things, and discovered the deep satisfaction of building a life together. Vincent talked to Amanda's growing belly every night, telling the baby about the ranch and the animals and all the things they would do together. He read aloud from his father's old journals, stories about the early days of settling this land. Amanda would fall asleep to the sound of his voice, feeling utterly content. Christmas came, and Vincent surprised Amanda by bringing home a small pine tree. They decorated it with strings of popcorn and paper ornaments Amanda made from old newspapers. Vincent gave her a beautiful carved wooden box he had made in secret, working on it in the barn when she thought he was just doing evening chores. Inside the box was a locket that had belonged to his mother. "I know it is not much," he said as she opened it with trembling fingers. "But my father gave this to my mother when they married. I would be honored if you would wear it." Amanda cried as she fastened it around her neck. "It is the most beautiful gift I have ever received." Her gift to him was a new shirt she had sewn in secret, using fabric she had carefully saved from the remnants of her old dress. She had embroidered his initials on the cuff in tiny, perfect stitches. Vincent was speechless when he opened it, running his fingers over the careful stitching. "You did not have to do this," he said. "I wanted to," Amanda replied. "I wanted you to have something I made just for you." They celebrated their first Christmas together quietly, just the two of them, and it was perfect in its simplicity. January arrived, and with it came bitter cold and heavy snow. Amanda's time was drawing near, and Vincent found himself increasingly anxious. He rode to the trading post and asked George to send word to Dodge City, requesting that the doctor come out if possible when the baby arrived. "Going to be difficult in this weather," George warned. "Might not be able to get out here in time." "I know," Vincent said, "but I have to try." He also consulted with the few ranch wives he knew from the surrounding area, asking advice about what to expect and what he might need. They were kind, these weathered frontier women, and they offered him practical advice along with knowing smiles. "You are going to do just fine," one of them, a woman named Martha who lived 10 miles east, told him. "I can tell you love your wife. That is half the battle right there. As Amanda's due date approached, Vincent barely let her out of his sight. He brought in extra firewood, stocked the pantry, made sure they had everything they might need. Amanda tolerated his fussing with good humor, though she occasionally had to remind him that women had been giving birth for thousands of years without quite so much preparation. "I know," Vincent said, "but none of those women were you." Amanda laughed and kissed him. "I am going to be fine. We are going to be fine." On a frigid night in late January, Amanda woke Vincent just after midnight. "It is time," she said quietly, and Vincent's heart began to race. He helped her into the main room, building up the fire and laying out the clean linens and supplies they had prepared. The hours that followed were the longest of Vincent's life. He held Amanda's hand, wiped her brow, encouraged her when she said she could not do it anymore. He had never felt so helpless or so terrified. The doctor did not come. The snow was too deep, the roads impassable. It was just the two of them in the small ranch house, as Amanda labored to bring new life into the world. As dawn broke on January 26, 1883, Amanda gave one final push, and their baby was born. Vincent caught the tiny, slippery body in his hands, overwhelmed with wonder and terror in equal measure. The baby let out a strong, healthy cry, and Vincent felt tears streaming down his face. "It is a boy," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Amanda, we have a son." He cleaned the baby carefully, remembering the instructions the ranch wives had given him, and wrapped him in the soft blankets Amanda had sewn. Then he placed the tiny bundle in Amanda's arms. She looked exhausted but radiant, her face glowing with joy as she gazed down at her son. "Our son," she corrected gently, looking up at Vincent. "We have a son." Vincent sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around Amanda and the other gently touching the baby's downy head. His family, his wife and his son, he had never imagined such happiness was possible. "What should we name him?" Amanda asked. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at the tiny, perfect face of their son, Vincent said, "What about Samuel? It was my father's name. He was a good man, and I would like to honor him." "Samuel Samuels," Amanda said, trying it out. Then she smiled. "I love it. Hello, Samuel. Welcome to the world, little one." Baby Samuel had a shock of dark hair and blue eyes that would later turn brown. He was healthy and strong, with a powerful set of lungs that he exercised frequently over the following weeks. Vincent proved to be a natural father, never complaining about sleepless nights or constant crying. He walked the floor with Samuel for hours, singing old cowboy songs in his off-key voice. He changed diapers without complaint and learned to soothe the baby when Amanda needed rest. Amanda watched her husband with their son and fell even more deeply in love with him. This was what she had dreamed of when she imagined having a family, this partnership and devotion and joy. That it had come from such desperate beginnings made it all the more precious. Winter gradually gave way to spring. The snow melted, revealing the muddy earth beneath. Vincent started the spring work on the ranch with renewed energy, motivated by his desire to provide well for his family. Samuel grew bigger and stronger, and Amanda regained her strength. One afternoon in early April, they bundled Samuel up and took him outside for the first time in weeks. The sun was shining, and new grass was beginning to push through the ground. Vincent held his son up, showing him the wide open sky and the distant horizon. "This is all going to be yours someday," Vincent said. "This land, this life. You are going to grow up strong and free, knowing you are loved." Amanda stood next to them, her hand on Vincent's shoulder. "He is lucky to have you as a father." "I am the lucky one," Vincent said. "You both saved me. I did not even know how lonely I was until you arrived and made everything better." As spring turned to summer, life on the ranch settled into a comfortable rhythm. Samuel was an easy baby, generally content to watch the world around him with wide, curious eyes. Amanda strapped him to her back in a sling she had fashioned, allowing her to work in the garden while keeping him close. Vincent brought them both out to the fields sometimes, and they would have picnic lunches under the shade of the few trees that dotted the property. They made the occasional trip to the trading post for supplies, and George always made a fuss over Samuel, slipping candy to Amanda when Vincent was not looking so she could have something sweet. Word had spread about Vincent taking in the pregnant woman and marrying her, and most people seemed to view it favorably. There were a few who made snide comments or gave them judgmental looks, but Vincent and Amanda ignored them. They knew the truth of their relationship, and that was all that mattered. In August, Martha and her husband came to visit, bringing their own children to meet Samuel. It was the first time Vincent and Amanda had entertained as a married couple, and Amanda was nervous, wanting everything to be perfect. But Martha was warm and welcoming, exclaiming over Samuel and praising everything about the house and the ranch. "You have done well for yourself, Vincent," Martha said as they sat on the porch watching the children play. "It takes a special man to do what you did." "I just did what anyone should do," Vincent said, uncomfortable with the praise. "No," Martha said firmly. "Most men would not have done what you did. You gave Amanda and that baby a chance at a good life when the world had written them off. That takes courage and kindness in equal measure." After they left, Amanda turned to Vincent. "She is right, you know. You are special." Vincent pulled her close, kissing her temple. "I am just a man who found the woman he was meant to love. There is nothing special about that, except how incredibly lucky I am." Fall came again, marking a full year since Amanda had first appeared at Vincent's ranch. They celebrated their first wedding anniversary quietly, with Martha coming to watch Samuel for the evening so Vincent and Amanda could have time alone together. Vincent had saved up and bought Amanda a new dress from the general store in Dodge City, the first store-bought clothing she had owned in nearly 2 years. Amanda had made Vincent a leather vest, carefully tooled with an intricate design she had practiced for months. "I cannot believe it has been a year," Amanda said as they sat together watching the sunset. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, and sometimes it feels like just yesterday that you found me by your barn." "The best day of my life," Vincent said, "even though I did not know it at the time." "Do you ever regret it?" Amanda asked quietly. "Taking on so much responsibility, having your quiet life disrupted." Vincent turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Not for one single second. Amanda, you and Samuel are the best things that ever happened to me. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You gave me a reason to truly live." They made love that night with the passion and tenderness that had only grown deeper over the months, secure in their love for each other and the life they had built together. The following spring, Amanda discovered she was pregnant again. They had talked about having more children, both wanting Samuel to have siblings, but the news still came as a wonderful surprise. Vincent was overjoyed, already imagining another child to love and raise. "I hope it is a girl this time," Amanda said one evening as they lay in bed, Vincent's hand resting on her still flat stomach. "A little girl with your kind eyes." "Boy or girl, I will be happy," Vincent said. "As long as you both come through it safely, that is all I care about." This pregnancy was easier than her first. Amanda was healthy and strong, no longer malnourished and exhausted. She had Vincent by her side, supporting her every step of the way. Samuel was a cheerful toddler now, walking and babbling constantly. He had Vincent's brown eyes and Amanda's auburn hair, and he was utterly fearless, always getting into things he should not. That summer, Vincent expanded the house, adding another bedroom for the growing family. He worked on it in his spare time, and several of the neighboring ranchers came to help when they could. The community had fully accepted Vincent and Amanda now, respecting the family they had built against all odds. In December of 1884, Amanda gave birth to a daughter. The labor was shorter and easier than with Samuel, and this time Vincent was less terrified, more confident in what to do. The doctor had made it out from Dodge City this time, but he arrived just after the baby was born, declaring mother and child healthy and complimenting Vincent on his capable handling of the situation. They named her Grace, after Amanda's mother. She had blue eyes that stayed blue and fine blonde hair that came from neither parent, but perhaps from some distant ancestor. Samuel was fascinated by his baby sister, constantly wanting to help with her care. Vincent would sit with both children in his lap, reading to them or just holding them, and Amanda would watch her family with a heart so full of love she thought it might burst. The years passed peacefully. The ranch prospered as Vincent's hard work paid off. He was able to increase his herd, buy better horses, make improvements to the property. Amanda kept a beautiful home, her gardens producing abundant vegetables that she canned for the winter. She sewed clothes for the family and made quilts that became locally famous for their intricate designs. Samuel grew into a bright, energetic boy who followed his father everywhere, learning everything he could about ranching. Grace was quieter, more contemplative, but she had a stubborn streak that occasionally surprised them all. In 1887, Amanda gave birth to another son whom they named Joseph. 2 years later came another daughter, Rose. The house that had once seemed too big for one lonely cowboy was now bursting with life and love. There were toys scattered across the floors, children's laughter echoing off the walls, the constant pleasant chaos of a large family. Vincent thrived on it all, never losing his patience or his sense of wonder at the life he had been given. On quiet evenings, after the children were in bed, Vincent and Amanda would sit together on the porch as they had done since the beginning. Sometimes they talked about the future, making plans for the ranch and the children's education. Sometimes they talked about the past, marveling at the journey that had brought them together. And sometimes they simply sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, content in each other's presence. "Do you ever think about that day?" Vincent asked one evening in the summer of 1890. "The day the dust storm brought you here." "All the time," Amanda said. "I think about how desperate I was, how certain I was that my life was over. And then you appeared like something out of a dream and saved me." "You saved me too," Vincent said. "I just did not know I needed saving." Amanda rested her head on his shoulder. "We saved each other then. We still save each other every day in 1,000 small ways." As the 1890s progressed, the Wild West was changing. The open range was disappearing, more settlers were arriving, and the lawless frontier days were fading into memory and legend. But on the Samuels Ranch, life continued with its comforting rhythms. Samuel was growing into a young man, already as tall as his father and twice as confident. Grace was 12, spending her time between helping her mother and sneaking off to read books she borrowed from the small library that had opened in Dodge City. Joseph and Rose were still young enough to believe their parents knew everything and could fix anything. Vincent cherished these years, knowing how quickly they would pass. In 1895, when Samuel was 12 and already taking on significant responsibilities around the ranch, Vincent sat him down for an important conversation. They were out checking fence line, just the two of them, when Vincent broached the subject he had been thinking about for years. Samuel, you are old enough now to understand some things about your history, about how our family came to be. Vincent began carefully. Samuel looked at him with those serious eyes that reminded Vincent so much of Amanda. I know I am not your blood son, if that is what you mean. I have known for a while. Vincent was surprised but tried not to show it. How did you figure it out? I heard some boys talking in town once. They said something cruel about Mother, about how she was expecting when she came here. I asked Grace about it, and she said we should ask you. But I already knew in my heart what the truth was. Samuel paused, looking out over the land. Does it matter? Not to me it does not, Vincent said firmly. You are my son in every way that matters. I have loved you since the day you were born, and I have never once thought of you as anything other than mine. Samuel turned to look at Vincent, and there were tears in the young man's eyes. You are my father. You are the only father I have ever known or wanted to know. The man who gave me life was nothing but a coward. You are the one who raised me, who taught me everything I know, who showed me what it means to be a good man. That makes you my real father. Vincent pulled Samuel into a tight embrace, both of them crying now. I am so proud of you, son. Prouder than I have words to express. That conversation strengthened the bond between them even further. Samuel became, if possible, even more devoted to the ranch and the family. He took pride in the Samuel's name and in living up to the example his father had set. The other children learned the story too, in time, each of them coming to understand the unusual beginning of their family. Grace confronted Amanda about it when she was 14, worried that it somehow reflected badly on her mother. Amanda sat her daughter down and told her the whole truth, leaving nothing out. I made mistakes, Amanda said. I trusted the wrong person and paid dearly for it, but those mistakes led me to your father, and I got you and your brothers and sister out of the bargain. So I cannot bring myself to regret the path I took, even though parts of it were painful beyond belief. Grace had hugged her mother tight. You are the strongest woman I know. I want to be just like you. The new century arrived, bringing with it incredible changes. Automobiles started appearing, though they were still rare and expensive. Electricity was coming to some of the bigger towns. The world was modernizing rapidly, but the Samuels Ranch remained largely unchanged, a stable anchor in a shifting world. In 1902, Samuel met a girl named Catherine in Dodge City. She was the daughter of a banker, sweet and practical with a good head for numbers. Samuel courted her properly, bringing her to meet the family and asking Vincent's advice on everything from flowers to the proper words to say. Vincent watched his son navigate the waters of young love and felt a bittersweet mix of pride and nostalgia. Samuel and Catherine were married in 1903, in the same church where Vincent and Amanda had wed 20 years earlier. The whole family made the trip to Dodge City for the ceremony. Amanda cried through the entire service, and Vincent held her hand, understanding completely. Their boy was a man now, starting his own family. Samuel and Catherine built a house on the far side of the Samuels' property, close enough to help with the ranch but far enough to have their own space. In 1904, they had their first child, a son they named Vincent. Amanda held her grandson and wept with joy, this baby who carried her husband's name and would carry on the family legacy. Grace grew into a serious young woman with a passion for teaching. She went to teachers' college in Kansas City, one of the first women from their area to do so. She wrote letters home every week, telling her parents about her studies and the exciting new ideas she was being exposed to. She eventually returned to Kansas and started teaching at a small schoolhouse 15 miles from the ranch. Joseph proved to have a gift with horses. By the time he was 16, people were bringing their animals from 3 counties away for him to train. He had Vincent's patience and Amanda's gentle persistence, and together they made him extraordinary at his craft. He stayed on the ranch, happy to work alongside his father and brother, with no desire for a life beyond what he already had. Rose, the baby of the family, was artistic and dreamy. She painted and drew constantly, capturing the beauty of the Kansas prairie in ways that surprised everyone with their sophistication. She talked about going to art school in Chicago someday, and Vincent, who would have forbidden such a thing for a daughter in his younger days, supported her ambitions completely. Amanda had taught him to see women as equals, capable of anything they set their minds to. In 1910, Vincent and Amanda celebrated their 27th wedding anniversary. They were both in their late 40s now, their hair showing gray and their faces lined with the marks of a life well lived. They had 8 grandchildren between Samuel's growing family and Grace, who had married a schoolteacher from Wichita. Joseph was courting a rancher's daughter from over near Abilene. Rose had indeed gone to Chicago to study art, but came home for holidays, bringing vibrant paintings and stories of city life that fascinated the whole family. On their anniversary, Vincent took Amanda back to the spot where he had first found her, by the barn that was now old and weathered but still standing. It had been rebuilt and expanded over the years, but the bones of it were the same. "You remember?" he asked, holding her hand as they stood in the late summer heat. "Every detail," Amanda said. "I remember thinking I was going to die out here, that this would be the end of my story. And then you appeared and gave me a whole new story, a better one than I ever could have imagined." "We wrote it together," Vincent said. "Every chapter, every page. We wrote it together, and it has been the greatest honor of my life." They stood there for a long time, 2 people who had found each other against impossible odds and built something lasting and beautiful. Around them, the ranch bustled with life, grandchildren playing, children working, the land producing and thriving. That evening, the entire family gathered for a celebration. Samuel had organized it in secret, bringing everyone together at the main house. There was food and music and laughter. Grandchildren climbed on Vincent's lap and begged for stories. Amanda held the newest baby, Samuel's youngest daughter, and sang the same songs her mother had sung to her all those years ago. As the sun set and the party continued around them, Vincent pulled Amanda aside. They walked out to the porch, their special place, and looked out over the land they had built their life on. "I want you to know something," Vincent said quietly. "Every single day of these past 27 years, I have woken up grateful. Grateful for that dust storm that brought you to me. Grateful for every moment we have shared. Grateful for the family we created together. You took a lonely cowboy and showed him what life could really be." Amanda turned to face him, cupping his weathered face in her hands. "And you took a woman who had been thrown away like trash and showed her that she had value, that she deserved love and respect. You gave me back my dignity and my hope. You gave me everything." They kissed as the sun painted the sky gold and red, the sounds of their family drifting out from the house behind them. It was not perfect, their life. There had been hard times, lean years, losses and disappointments along the way. But it was real and it was theirs, built on a foundation of true love and unwavering commitment. In 1912, Vincent fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly brutal winter. For several terrifying weeks, Amanda barely left his side, nursing him with the same fierce determination she had shown in everything else she did. The whole family rallied, taking over the ranch work, caring for Vincent, refusing to believe that the strong man who had always been their rock could be fallible. Vincent recovered, but it took months for him to regain his full strength. It was a sobering reminder that they were not immortal, that their time together, precious as it was, would not last forever. After that, they made a point of saying the important things more often, of never taking a single day for granted. Joseph married his rancher's daughter, Beth, in 1913, and they too built a house on the Samuels property. The ranch was becoming a true family compound, multiple generations working and living side by side. It was everything Vincent had never known he wanted, this legacy of love and hard work. Rose returned from Chicago in 1914 with a husband in tow, an art dealer named Marcus, who was initially overwhelmed by the vast open spaces of Kansas, but who gradually came to love the ranch and the family that welcomed him. They settled in Dodge City, where Rose opened a small art school, but they visited the ranch frequently, and Rose painted landscapes of the property that sold in galleries back east. In 1915, Amanda and Vincent became great-grandparents when Samuel's oldest son, the Vincent Jr. they called Junior, had a daughter of his own. Holding that tiny baby, Vincent felt the weight of years in a way he never had before. He was 60 years old now, his body showing the wear of decades of hard physical labor, but his heart was full to overflowing. 4 generations, Amanda said, standing beside him as he held the baby. 4 generations of Samuels, all because of one desperate woman and one kind cowboy. It was always meant to be this way, Vincent said. I believe that. Everything in our lives led us to that moment by the barn, and everything good that came after flowed from that single point. They settled into their later years with grace. Vincent gradually handed over more responsibility to Samuel and Joseph, though he still worked every day, unable to fully give up the ranch that had been his whole life. Amanda slowed down too, spending more time with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, passing on her knowledge of sewing and cooking and gardening. They took to sitting on the porch for longer stretches, sometimes talking but often just being together, comfortable in the silence that only decades of deep companionship can create. They watched the changing seasons, the cycle of life on the ranch, the comings and goings of their large, extended family. In the spring of 1920, Vincent surprised Amanda by taking her on a trip to California. It was the first time either of them had been so far from home, and it was both thrilling and strange. They took the train, watching the country pass by outside their window, marveling at how much the world had changed since 1882. This is where you were trying to get to, Vincent said as they stood on the beach watching the Pacific Ocean, something neither of them had ever seen before. When that wagon train left you behind, you were trying to get here. Amanda looked out at the endless water, the waves rolling in and out with eternal rhythm. I thought California was my destiny. I thought I needed to get here to have a life worth living. But I was wrong. My destiny was not a place. It was you. They spent a week in California, tourists in a strange land. But both of them were eager to get home, back to the ranch and their family. California was beautiful, but it was not theirs. Kansas was theirs. The ranch was theirs. That was where they belonged. The 1920s brought more changes. Samuel took over the full management of the ranch as Vincent's health began to decline. It was hard for Vincent to step back, but he trusted his son completely. Grace's children were in college now, studying to be teachers and doctors and engineers. Joseph and Beth had 5 children of their own, all of them showing Joseph's gift with horses. Rose's art school was thriving, and she had become locally famous, her work displayed in galleries throughout Kansas and beyond. In 1925, Vincent and Amanda celebrated their 42nd wedding anniversary. There was another big family gathering, even larger than the one 15 years earlier. The house could not hold everyone anymore, so they set up tables outside. There were nearly 60 people in attendance, all of them connected to Vincent and Amanda's unlikely union. Samuel gave a toast, his voice carrying over the assembled crowd. "My parents taught me what love really means. Not just romantic love, though they certainly have that in abundance. But love as action, love as choice, love as commitment. My father chose to love a stranger in need. He chose to love a child that was not biologically his. He chose, every single day, to show up and do the work of being a good husband and father. And my mother chose to trust again after being betrayed. She chose to open her heart despite her fear. She chose to build a life from the ashes of her old one. Their choices made all of this possible." He gestured at the gathered family. "Every single person here exists because of their courage and their love. That is a legacy worth celebrating." There was not a dry eye in the crowd as Samuel finished speaking. Vincent and Amanda stood together, holding hands as they had done for over 4 decades, and looked at the incredible family they had created. It was more than Vincent had ever dreamed possible in those lonely days before Amanda arrived. It was more than Amanda had dared hope for when she thought she was going to die in the Kansas dust. The late 1920s were peaceful years. Vincent was 70 now and mostly retired, content to sit on his porch and watch his descendants work the land he had once worked himself. Amanda, at 68, was still active, still the center of the family in many ways. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren came to her with their problems and their joys, seeking her wisdom and her blessing. On a warm evening in August of 1928, exactly 46 years after Amanda had first appeared at Vincent's ranch, they sat together on their porch as the sun set. Vincent had been more tired than usual lately, and Amanda fussed over him despite his protests. "I am fine, Amanda," he said, but he let her fuss anyway because he knew it made her feel better. "You are not fine," Amanda said. "You are stubborn and you push yourself too hard, always have." Vincent smiled at that. "Takes one to know one." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the colors change in the sky. Finally, Vincent spoke again. "Amanda, I need you to promise me something." "Anything," she said immediately. "When I am gone, I need you to promise me that you will keep living, really living. Do not shut yourself away and mourn forever. Keep being part of this family we built. They need you." Amanda felt tears prick her eyes. "Do not talk like that. You are not going anywhere." "Not yet," Vincent said gently. "But someday, probably sooner rather than later, we both know that. And I need to know that you will be all right." "I will never be all right without you," Amanda said fiercely. "You are my heart, Vincent. You have been from the beginning." "And you are mine," Vincent said, "which is why I know you have the strength to go on." "You are the strongest person I have ever known, Amanda. You will be sad, and that is okay. But do not let the sadness consume you. Keep living, keep loving. That is what I want for you." Amanda could not speak, could only nod through her tears. Vincent pulled her close, and they sat that way as the stars came out, holding each other and drawing strength from a love that had weathered 4.5 decades. Vincent lived for 3 more years, gradually growing weaker, but never losing his gentle spirit or his love for his family. In the spring of 1931, at the age of 75, Vincent Samuels passed away peacefully in his sleep with Amanda beside him. The funeral was enormous, bringing together family and friends from across Kansas and beyond. Everyone who spoke remembered Vincent's kindness, his integrity, his unwavering commitment to doing what was right. Samuel gave the eulogy, telling the story of how his father had taken in a desperate woman and her unborn child, and built a family that now spanned 4 generations. Amanda was devastated by Vincent's death, but she remembered her promise to him. She grieved deeply and honestly, but she did not withdraw from life. She continued to be present for her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She told them stories about Vincent, keeping his memory alive and vibrant. She lived for another 12 years, passing away in 1943 at the age of 83. In those years without Vincent, she continued to be the heart of the family. She saw her great-grandchildren marry and have children of their own. She helped Beth through Joseph's death in 1940, showing the younger woman how to carry grief with grace. She counseled Rose through struggles with her art career, reminding her daughter that true success was measured in happiness, not accolades. When Amanda died, peacefully in her sleep just as Vincent had, the family buried her next to him on a hill overlooking the ranch. Their graves were simple, marked with plain stones that bore their names and the dates of their births and deaths. But between those dates was an entire lifetime of love, of courage, of choosing each other again and again. The Samuels Ranch continued to thrive under Samuel's guidance, and then under Junior's after Samuel passed in 1955. The land stayed in the family for generations, each inheritor adding their own chapter to the story, while honoring the foundation that Vincent and Amanda had laid. Even decades later, when great-great-grandchildren who had never met Vincent and Amanda worked the same land, they knew the story. They knew about the lonely cowboy who took in a desperate pregnant woman. They knew about the love that had bloomed from that act of kindness. They knew that their entire existence flowed from one man's choice to help someone in need, and from one woman's courage to trust again. The porch where Vincent and Amanda had spent so many evenings remained, carefully maintained through the years. New generations of Samuels couples sat there watching the sunset, holding hands, building their own love stories on the foundation of the one that had started it all. Because that was the true legacy of Vincent and Amanda Samuels. Not the ranch, not the material wealth they had accumulated, but the understanding that love, real love, was built through daily choices and unwavering commitment. That the greatest romance was not in grand gestures, but in showing up, day after day, choosing to care for each other even when it was hard. Their story became a family legend, told and retold at gatherings, embellished slightly with each telling but always true in its core message. That love can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances, that kindness creates ripples that extend far beyond the initial act, and that the most precious thing anyone can build is a family rooted in genuine love and respect. The ranch still stands today, though it looks different than it did in 1882. Modern equipment has replaced horses and hand tools. The original house has been added onto and renovated, but the spirit of the place remains unchanged. It is still a home built on the foundation of one cowboy's choice to help a woman in need, and her choice to trust him, despite all the reasons she had to never trust again. And on quiet evenings, if you stand on that old porch and listen carefully, you might almost hear echoes of the past. A man's gentle voice telling stories to his children, a woman's soft laughter, the sound of two people who found each other against all odds and built something that would outlast them both by generations. That is the story of Vincent and Amanda Samuels. A lonely cowboy took in a woman left behind expecting. He became father to her child and husband to her, and together they created a love story for the ages.